When I saw my teacher for the first time, I fell in love with him. It wasn't the kind of love that made sense. It was immediate, silent, disarming. The kind that didn't ask permission, it simply claimed territory. His name was Mr. Carter. He walked into the lecture hall like he owned it, not with arrogance but certainty. He was in his late 30s, tall and sharply dressed, with graying stubble that somehow made him more magnetic. He wasn't conventionally handsome. His nose was slightly crooked, and there were creases under his eyes, but his presence made everything else disappear. His voice, deep, controlled, like he knew every word that left his mouth carried weight. I was 20, a second-year literature student. I had a boyfriend, Alex, who was kind and responsible and everything a stable relationship should be. We'd been together for 2 years. Lately, things felt still. Like we were standing in a room that used to have music, but the song had ended long ago. The moment Mr. Carter started speaking about Dostoevsky, I forgot about Alec. I forgot everything. He spoke with passion, like he wasn't just teaching a class but confessing something sacred. His eyes scanned the room as he talked, until they landed on me. Just for a second. A beat too long. My chest tightened. It could have meant nothing. It felt like everything. I told myself I was being stupid. Students get crushes on professors all the time. It's normal. Fleeting. Harmless. But it wasn't harmless. That first week, I couldn't stop thinking about him. In class, I sat closer. Not front row, that would have been too obvious, but close enough to see the way his lips moved when he read poetry aloud. I memorized his gestures. The way he rolled his sleeves halfway up, the casual hand in his pocket, the occasional smirk when someone said something clever. At night, lying beside Alex, I stared at the ceiling, wondering what Mr. Carter was doing at that moment. Was he alone? Was he married? Gay? I told myself it didn't matter. But it did. God, it did. Alex noticed. "You've been quiet lately," he said one morning, making coffee. "Just stressed about classes," I lied. He kissed my forehead and smiled. "You've got this." Guilt flickered in my chest, but it vanished the moment I walked into Mr. Carter's office hours the next afternoon. I'd made up a question about an assignment. I just needed to see him up close, hear his voice without the buffer of 100 students. He looked up and smiled. "You're Noah, right?" My stomach flipped. He remembered my name. "Yes," I said, maybe too fast. "I had a question about the essay prompts." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Let's talk." We did. But not just about essays. Somehow we ended up talking about Rilke, then Baldwin, then how I grew up in a town where boys weren't allowed to cry. He listened. Intently. As if everything I said was worthy of being archived. Every nod, every hum of acknowledgement, pulled me deeper in. "I don't usually get students who think like you," he said. My throat dried. "Is that good or bad?" He smiled. "It's refreshing." I walked out of his office and felt like I'd left part of myself behind. Over the next 2 weeks, things escalated, but never crossed. We talked after class. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing that could be pointed to. But I felt the tension growing in the silence between words. His glances lingered. Mine did too. I began timing my arrival to walk in when he did. I started dressing better for class. I told myself it was coincidence, admiration, maybe a harmless infatuation. Then one day, he handed back my essay. On top was a single word, written in red ink. Brilliant. Under it, a short note. "See me after class." I stayed, heart pounding. As the last student filed out, he leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "You wrote something honest," he said. "Most students write what they think I want to hear. You didn't." I swallowed. "I don't know how to fake it." "Good," he said. "Don't." That pause again. The one where something unspoken pulsed between us. I broke it first. "I should go." He nodded, slowly. "See you next week, Noah." Walking out, I didn't feel like a student. I felt like someone being watched. Not in a dangerous way, in a way that said, I see you. Later that night, I was brushing my teeth when Alex walked into the bathroom, phone in hand. Want to watch something tonight? I stared at my reflection. Not tonight. I'm tired. He kissed my shoulder. Okay. Tomorrow then. I nodded. He left. I spit the toothpaste into the sink and whispered to the mirror, You're falling for him. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a confession. It was a fact. And I didn't want to stop. The line between thought and touch is thinner than we want to admit. After that night in the mirror, I promised myself I'd pull back. I told myself it was a crush. Dangerous, yes, but still salvageable. I had Alex. I had rules. I had control. But control doesn't mean a damn thing when you start craving the way someone says your name. Mr. Carter. Julian, as I learned accidentally from an overheard conversation in the staff hallway, kept his distance professionally. Yet everything between us became intimate. His gaze lingered longer. His questions after class felt more personal. When I spoke, he listened like I was the only voice in the world. And I fed it. I stayed after class more often. I laughed too hard at his jokes. I wore shirts that I knew made my shoulders look good. I wasn't subtle. Neither was he. One day, while handing me back a quiz, our fingers brushed. Just that, skin to skin. But it jolted me like an electric shock. He didn't pull away immediately. Neither did I. When our eyes met, everything else fell silent. I didn't blink. I couldn't. That same night, Alex cooked dinner. Spaghetti, our comfort meal. He lit candles like we used to when we still tried. You've been somewhere else lately, he said, pouring wine. Just school, I replied, twirling noodles around my fork. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Are we okay? I looked at him, his soft brown eyes, his patience, the loyalty he carried like an anchor. He deserved the truth. Instead, I smiled. Of course. But even as I said it, my mind was replaying the moment with Julian, how close we'd been, how warm his hand had felt, how dangerous everything was becoming. By mid-semester, the class had turned into our private language. I'd speak up more often, not to impress the room, but to impress him. He'd respond with eyes that only softened for me. One day after class, he stopped me. You're not afraid to be seen, he said, half smiling. I admire that. I think I'm terrified of being invisible, I replied before I could filter it. Something shifted. His eyes darkened. You aren't. The air between us tightened. He glanced down, then back up. Careful, he said quietly. You're easy to look at when you're honest. I walked away, pulse thudding, ears ringing. I knew then. This wasn't safe anymore. This wasn't academic admiration. This was a current pulling me out to sea. And I was already underwater. At home, Alex started asking more questions. Who was I texting? Why was I staying late? He wasn't angry, he was hurt. That made it worse. I started deleting messages I wasn't proud of, hiding journal entries, practicing lies until they sounded like truths. One Friday, I told Alex I had a group study session. I didn't. I just wanted to walk the campus alone, be near Julian without speaking to him. I ended up outside his office, heart pounding like a traitor. I didn't knock. I didn't go in. But I wanted to. That weekend, Alex booked a cabin for our anniversary. Remote, quiet. No service. We cooked, drank wine, hiked trails we'd once loved. But I was elsewhere. I watched my phone even when it had no signal. I thought about Julian reading alone in his apartment. I wondered if he ever thought of me. On the last night there, Alex kissed me in bed. Slow. Familiar. His hands knew my body. Mine hesitated. You're not here, he whispered. I'm tired, I lied again. He rolled over, silent. I stared at the ceiling, feeling like a stranger in the arms of the man who knew me best. The next Monday, everything broke a little more. I stayed after class under the pretense of revising an essay topic. Julian leaned over my desk to look at my note. His arm brushed mine. His breath was close. You ever write just to say what you can't speak? He asked. All the time, I said. He looked at me. Not like a teacher. Not like a friend. Like a man starving in a room full of food he can't touch. I think about things I shouldn't, he admitted. You make that harder. I swallowed. You think I don't? He stepped back, jaw tight. This has to stop. I nodded, though everything inside me screamed, don't let it. But I respected the line, at least, I tried. I avoided his office. I cut our conversations short. I poured more attention into Alex, tried to make up for every silent betrayal with gestures. Flowers, kisses, attention. But love given out of guilt tastes bitter, and Alex could sense it. You're trying so hard, he said one night, but I don't think you're trying for me. That hurt. Because it was true. Julian and I kept our distance, but the tension didn't leave. It just settled in, like fog on a field, thick, quiet, impossible to ignore. One evening, I stayed in the classroom long after everyone else had left. I just sat there, alone, staring at the blackboard. Julian walked in, surprised to see me. I was just thinking, I said. He sat a few rows behind me. About what? I turned to face him. If we're already drowning, does it matter when we stop swimming? He looked at me like I'd spoken a secret he hadn't dared say out loud. That's the problem, Noah, he said softly. It always matters. The silence stretched long. I stood to leave. Our eyes met one more time. Something was coming. We both knew it. Temptation is never loud. It whispers. It waits. It was a Thursday night when everything finally cracked open. Alex had gone to visit his sister for the weekend. He asked me to come, but I made up a story about exams and deadlines. He didn't argue, he just kissed my cheek and said, "Call me before bed." I said I would. I didn't. Instead, I found myself pacing my apartment like a caged animal. Every room felt too quiet, too hollow. I couldn't stop thinking about Julian, about the way his voice dipped when he was tired, about the way his eyes undressed every mask I wore. At 8:13 p.m., I messaged him. "Are you still on campus?" He replied 5 minutes later, was just about to leave. Why? I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. I knew the answer. So did he. "Can I come by?" I typed. "Noah." A pause. Then, 15 minutes. When I arrived, his office was dim, lit only by the lamp on his desk. He stood when I entered, closing the door behind me. We didn't speak. I sat across from him. The air was thick. "I shouldn't have asked to come," I said quietly. He leaned back in his chair, eyes on mine. "But you did." My hands trembled slightly. I clenched them in my lap. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore." He exhaled hard, like he'd been holding something in for weeks. "Neither do I." Another long silence. A storm building without thunder. Then he stood. Walked around the desk. Stopped right in front of me. "You're not a kid," he said, voice low. "I'm not your savior. If this happens, it's not a mistake. We both know what it is." I stood too. Our faces inches apart. "I don't want safe," I whispered. "Not tonight." That was all it took. He kissed me like he was starving. No hesitation, no pretense. Just raw, messy want. My back hit the bookshelf. Books tumbled. I didn't care. His hands were on my waist, mine in his hair. Every second burned through the months of tension we'd bottled up. Clothes hit the floor in pieces. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't slow. It was desperate and hungry and so wrong. But it felt like truth. Afterward, we lay on the office couch in silence. Our breathing slowly calmed, but nothing about us was calm. Julian traced a line down my chest. "This can't happen again." I nodded, staring at the ceiling. "I know. But we both knew it would." I stayed until almost midnight. When I left, the campus was empty. I walked home with his scent still on my skin, my heart pounding in rhythms I didn't recognize. Alex called at 12:08 a.m. I let it ring. Then I texted, "Sorry, fell asleep. Love you." Guilt came in waves, but it didn't anchor me. It floated beside desire like two sides of the same sharp coin. The next few days blurred. Julian and I didn't speak about what had happened, but everything had changed. In class, we avoided eye contact like cowards. Outside of it, our texts grew more cryptic, more dangerous. We met again the following week. Then again. His place. My apartment. Empty classrooms. Each time we said it was the last. Each time we lied. Julian was different outside of class. Vulnerable. Rough around the edges. He told me about his ex, a man who made him feel like a secret. I told myself I'd never go back to hiding, he said. Then you showed up. I didn't tell him I felt the same. I just kissed him again. But double lives have expiration date. And mine was coming fast. Alex found a receipt. A cafe I'd never mentioned. 2 drinks. 1 sandwich. He asked who I'd been with. I said a study partner. He didn't push, but his eyes told me he didn't believe me. I wanted to end it. I tried. But love wrapped in secrecy becomes addictive. Every time I saw Julian, it felt like lighting a match in a room full of gas, and standing there anyway just to feel the heat. Then came the breaking point. It was raining. I was walking across campus, soaked, late for class. I turned a corner and froze. Julian was there, standing under an awning, talking to another professor. And then it happened. He looked at me, not as a student, not as a mistake, but with something like pride. His lips curled into the faintest smile. The other professor noticed. You know him? The man asked. Julian nodded. One of my best students. I walked past them, heart thudding. That night, I asked myself the hardest question. Was I in love with Julian or with the version of myself I could only be around him? And what about Alex, who had loved me through every quiet storm, who gave without needing to be asked? Was I still his? Or had I already left him in everything but name? I didn't sleep that night. Because something had changed. The line wasn't just crossed. It was erased. Guilt doesn't come all at once. It leaks in slowly. Drip by drip, until you're drowning in your own choices. It started with silence. Alex stopped asking where I was going. He stopped waiting up. He stopped pretending things were fine. The distance between us wasn't loud, but it was absolute. Like a door had closed without a sound. Julian and I didn't stop. We tried. We said we would. But passion like that doesn't listen to reason. It takes over. He'd whisper, last time, into my neck like a prayer. I'd answer with my body, not my words. We had sex in rooms we weren't supposed to be in. Shared glances across campus like secrets too dangerous to keep. I lived in halves, half mine, half his. Half real, half hidden. One afternoon, I came home to find Alex sitting at the kitchen table. His phone in front of him. My laptop open beside it. His eyes didn't leave mine. Who is Julian Carter? I froze. He turned the screen to face me. An email. One I'd never meant for him to see. One with phrases no student should ever send to a teacher. I couldn't breathe. Is that your professor? He asked, voice trembling. Tell me I'm wrong. I said nothing. That silence was louder than any confession. He stood up. How long? Since midterm, I whispered. He laughed bitterly. Midterm? Jesus, Noah. I didn't mean for it to happen. No one ever does. He pushed past me, went into the bedroom, came out with a duffel bag. I'm staying at my sister's. Alex. Don't. Just don't. And then he was gone. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just stood there in the middle of the kitchen, watching the dust in the sunlight like everything normal had exploded into particles I couldn't hold. I messaged Julian. He knows. He replied, I'm sorry. Then, do you want to come over? I did. Not because I wanted comfort, but because I didn't want to be alone in the wreckage I'd created. That night, in Julian's bed, I asked the question that had been gnawing at me for weeks. What are we doing? He stared at the ceiling. I don't know. Do you love me? A pause. I want to. I turned my face into his shoulder. I don't want to be a secret anymore. He didn't answer. Because the truth was simple. I was never going to be anything more than a risk he took when the lights were off. We could share bodies, not lives. A week later, the university launched a formal investigation. It wasn't Alex who reported us. It was another student. Someone had seen us together after class. Too many times. In the wrong places. One rumor was all it took. Julian called me, voice panic. They're looking into it. You need to deny everything. What? They can't prove anything unless you admit it. If we both deny it, they'll drop it. You want me to lie? I want to protect you. But I knew what he really meant. I want to protect myself. The thought made my stomach turn. That night, I sat in the ethics office, heart pounding. The dean asked me directly, "Did you have an inappropriate relationship with Professor Carter?" I stared at the floor. Yes. The room went silent. The investigation moved fast after that. Julian was placed on indefinite leave. I was reassigned to another advisor. Rumors spread like fire. I didn't deny them. Because for once, I wanted to stop hiding. Julian called me the next day. Why did you tell them? Because I was done pretending it didn't happen. He exhaled slowly. You've ruined my career. I know. And I ruined Alex too. And myself. I didn't do it to hurt you, Julian. I did it to be honest. He didn't call again. Alex never came back. He changed his number. Blocked me on everything. His sister returned for the rest of his stuff one Sunday afternoon. She didn't say a word. Just looked at me like I was the storm that tore her brother's house down. And she wasn't wrong. Months passed. I started therapy. I withdrew from the class. I stopped looking for Julian on campus. Eventually, I heard he'd left the city. Maybe teaching somewhere else. Maybe not teaching at all. People stopped whispering. But I didn't forget. I still walk by that lecture hall sometimes. I still remember the way he said my name like it meant something sacred. I remember the heat of his touch, the weight of his body, the danger of what we were. Was it love? Maybe. But love, real love, doesn't grow in the shadows. It doesn't destroy everything it touches. Now, when I think of Julian, I don't hate him. I don't even regret it. I just remember. Because some people enter your life like fire. They burn everything down and leave you standing in the ash, learning how to breathe again. And maybe that's the point.